Okay, this is the question I can't wait for you to talk about, because we've got an audience here that they're watching this and listening to this because they want to get better, period. And we're talking about a professional context. Some are in leadership positions. Some are not, but we know this, that if you keep getting promoted in the American workplace, at some point they promote you to a leadership role. And this is a fascinating leadership question for you. And you are a leader. You've also followed. So there is a really interesting exchange trade fund, ETF. It's called Deadlift ETF. That's the actual name of it. You know about this. And it's outperformed the S&P 500 by 140% over the past 4 years. That's not nothing. That's not a fluke when we're talking about that percentage plus that amount of time. And they put it together on one key factor. The CEOs of the companies in this ETF are deadlifting and lifting weights. I just hand that to you. What do we take away from that?
So, and actually that is in line with the study that looked at what are some of the traits of successful CEOs. And one of the things that pops up very consistently is they exercise consistently. And there is a possibility that, well, this could just be a high performance thing, right? Like they push their bodies and so they're able to push in other places. But there's probably more to it than that. We are finding out that exercise has cognitive benefits, and even acute cognitive benefits, that you go exercise and it actually improves your short-term memory, acutely in one time. And actually there was a study now, not exercise, but creatine supplementation, high dose creatine supplementation improved cognitive function in a short period of time. And then we look at, there was, I don't know if I brought this up earlier, but a study on depression. Yeah, I did.
Yes.
The study on depression in men. And then the research showing better test scores in adolescents who are physically active. It's kind of a dose-dependent response. And so I think we tried to, for a long time, it was this idea that your mind is separate from your body. Your body is a bag of meat that's wired up to your brain. And if you poke the bag, punch the bag, burn the bag, cut the bag, your brain goes owie, right? But they don't really cross-communicate. And I think what we can clearly say from the last 20 years of exercise science research is what happens in the body affects the mind. And what we can say from the pain science research is what happens in the mind affects the body. So there is crosstalk. I think it's going to be the biggest scientific revolution, that we're no longer going to look at mind and body as separate, that we're going to look at these as the same thing. That if you exercise, it makes your brain healthier. So I think there is something to, I think, one, it is correlational. Yes, people who are higher performers are probably more likely to try and take that into other areas. But I think also there is a mechanistic function here of, when you exercise, it makes you better cognitively at the things you do.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, 140% actually does kind of shock me. That's pretty good.
That's huge.
And so,
I'm in therapy right now. Okay, doing some hard stuff. It's hard. It's really hard. Okay, stuff I should have done for decades, but I'm doing it, right. And I'm also lifting for the first time in my life. And I just wonder, with what you said, I'm drawing something together. Correct me here, but it feels like that we need to be doing physical therapy.
Yeah.
At the same time that we're doing the emotional stuff. It feels like that would be better.
Yeah, and actually even one of the, if you look at the correlation between psychological stress and autoimmune disorders, very high correlation between psychological stress, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, and some of the best treatments for those things, counterintuitively, is actually exercise. And exercise has what we call a hormetic effect, which is, if I just said to you, Ken, I'm going to have you do something that's going to raise your blood pressure, raise your heart rate, raise your cortisol, raise your inflammation, raise your reactive oxygen species, you would say, that sounds like death, not doing it. And that is acutely what exercise does. So it's almost like a controlled dose of a stressor that allows you to handle other stress better, right? So yes, I do think it is important to physically expel energy and move your body, which makes perfect sense when you consider how mankind evolved. The human body is meant for movement. It's meant to do stuff. And if you don't do stuff, it gets all wacky, And even like appetite regulation, one of the biggest benefits of exercise is not because it burns a ton of calories. It actually does it for the amount of time you spend doing it, like the effort. The calorie burn is really not that high, even if you're like, if you're exercising for 2-3 hours, but most people don't have time for that. But it actually makes your appetite regulation much better. Your brain, they've actually shown that your brain becomes more sensitive to your satiety signals, your body's own internal hunger cues. So again, exercise, satiety cues, reduce, symptoms of depression and anxiety, improve cognitive function. It seems to be pretty clear here that doing hard physical stuff can help with hard mental stuff.
Yeah.